Hi, it's Adam on Tested, and we have a brand new one-day build. I wanted to start off a little bit slowly with you watching me pull this puppy out because this is the problem I'm going to try and solve today. You know that in my cave, I love organizing my nuts and bolts, and I like having the widest possible assortment so that I don't have to go to the hardware store. I like to think of the shop kind of like a hardware store. And this is one of my hardware aisles. This is all my nuts and bolts. These are button-headed Allen bolts. These are hex-headed. These are cap-headed with washers, etc. Long, short, the whole works. But here's the problem. The problem is what I just had to do, which was spin this 180 to get to the other side. I thought this was the solution to all my problems, because when I needed nuts and bolts, I'd roll them out. But the problem is this thing lived here in the corner for like the last 3 years, and all of that it's been is this albatross. It's a little too wide for me to fit against the wall, and I don't want to pull it out every single time I use it. The fact that it's double-sided turns it into a useless nightmare for me. So I want to replace it. I want to change it for one that holds all the same stuff. It's kind of the same form factor, but only one-sided. So that's what today's one-day build is, a new nut and bolt sorter for the cave. The first problem that I identified was the actual sorters themselves. I love sorters, but I think in general, these yellow ones were too wide. And my assumption was if I could make them narrower, if I could find narrower sorters, I'd get more bang for my buck. I'd be able to squeeze more into the single form factor. And after a bunch of looking, I found exactly what I wanted on Amazon, and we will include the link for this in the comments below. This is my solution. It's the same depth, it's the same height, it's just a little, it's about 60% of the width. Which means by my estimation, I should be able to get, well, this cart holds 144 sorters. I'm looking for like 172. That's my goal. And I think I could get it on a single front-facing thing. It's gonna take a lot of plywood and a lot of steel. And then I'm gonna have to transfer everything over. And then I'm gonna have to figure out where this thing goes. But those are all problems for future me. This is one of my shelves, of which I think I'm going to have 15 total. It fits the sorters, and then I'm going to put on top of it these, so I'm still working out some of the last details, but basically I'm going to put these fins on to keep it at about a 15-degree angle, which matches this behemoth behind me. And then I'm going to make 15 shelves just like this, and I'm going to stack them on top of each other and support them with some steel. Oh, all right. 13, 14, 15. Okay, 15 shelves. I'm really pleased with how these look. This is beautiful plywood. It's all glued and stapled together, so it's nice and stable. There shouldn't be any drooping on these shelves, despite the amount of weight I'm going to put on them. And now I'm going to build the steel supports that hold it all in its orientation. And this guy. Awesome. All right. Ooh. All right. Let's see. Got a cut list here. And this is It's not necessarily apparent, but it's a scorcher of a day here in San Francisco. It's 11 in the morning and it's already like over 80 degrees here, which just never happens in California. One other problem I had with my previous nut and bolt sorter rack was that it was hard to roll around. And it's hard because it weighs a lot and it only has 4 wheels. My floors here are plywood and they are able to handle things as heavy as my mill and my lathe, but plywood still it's a little soft. So when you have 4 points, they tend to dig in and it makes it hard to move a heavy object around. So I'm actually putting this thing in with 6 points. I'm using 6 separate 4-inch locking hard black casters for this. And I'm hoping with that 6 points, I actually make it a little easier to move around. I also may end up attaching a couple of handles to this so that I can actually handle it and have more room, more grab points to move it around. There is few things more pleasurable than a properly set welder, set for the metal you're welding, and laying down a nice bead. Yeah, we can come get a close-up of that, because that's a nice bead and I'm proud of it. I love welding. Oh, one more cut, and that would be this cut. In this build, I'm dealing with something that a lot of you out there deal with, which is part of my shop is not big enough for the build I want to do with that part of the shop. My metalworking area is meant for like prop work, but this is a big piece of freaking equipment. So it's just, in the same way that time can substitute for knowledge when you don't know how to do something, you just take more time and take each step methodically. Time can also replace space within reason. So, in a bigger space, if I have a big welding table, it'd be really easy to do all this, lay it out, bump, bump, bump. Because I have a smaller table, I have to be more circumspect about every single step. But that's just about it. I just have to take a little more time with each one. Because why? Because I have Oh. I am very impatient. That's what you're watching me deal with here. I could clean off the whole thing and then go get my thing, but because I'm impatient, I try and do it all kind of a piece, and then I end up in this situation. Here we go. Now, don't judge me. I'm welding my casters on. I know! However, I'm welding my casters on. You can't talk me out of it. Nope. I am actively welding these casters on because I don't see the need to make them through bolted. This thing's gonna live on these casters forever. So I'm gonna weld my casters on. It's not in my nature to do that. But in this build, I decided a couple nights ago, yep, that's exactly how I'm doing it. There we go. Okay. Welding casters. If you find that offensive, please know, part of me does too, but still, I'm doing it! Awesome. Awesome. All right, here we go. Oh, right. We are almost finished. I am literally putting the roof on. Yeah. And then, whoops. Oh. Putting the roof on, and then I should have the ultimate parts sorter extraordinaire. There's one. Two. And three. And four. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you, I've been like picturing this thing in my head now for months. For months. I came up with the idea for this about halfway into Savage Builds, and then I had to wait all this time to order the steel, make the measurements, and put it all together. But I believe we have everything. I'm just gonna double check I put the right piece up there. Yeah. Yeah, great. Good, good, good. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 12 times 15, 12 times 15, 144 plus 6. 180 of these. Yeah. That should be awesome. That should be enough. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Here we go. Nylock, wing nut, T-nut, washer, split washer. So the whole issue here for me is, where does everything go? Obviously, everything is front-facing, but I have to keep in mind what I'm going to use more often than anything else, which is going to be the 1/4-inch hardware, the quarter-inch diameter bolts with a 20 threads per inch gauge. And those are the smallest of the bolts that will go on this, but they shouldn't be on the bottom. Right? Because I don't want to get on my knees to get all the 1/4-20 bolts out. In fact, like I'm likely to just grab everything here. So this is a nice compromise. It's 4 rows up from the bottom. It's about knee height. It's where I would go looking for this stuff. All the nuts and washer stuff goes here in this section. And then I think I can actually put like 1/4-20 hardware over here again, because it's the thing I use most commonly, and then start to go up with the heaviest bolts being way up on top, because those are the ones that get the least amount of use. That's the theory. The nice thing about this system is, if that theory doesn't work, I can pull these out and change their orientation. So just to be clear, the one thing that I have here that I really like is regular nuts are here, nylock nuts are here, wing nuts, T-nuts, washers, split washers, fender washers. That's pretty cool. You know what though? Let's get rid of split washers. I don't know that split washers do any actual good. So, because I could use the space. Ooh, and that gives me 6. Oh, no, that's so much better. Split washers, I am done with you. Oh, much better. Much better. I'm very happy about that. Jen, bottom 4 shelves on the lower left here on the left side. That's going to be all the nuts and washers. I'm getting rid of split washers. We'll just put those in a big bucket. But now I'm curious as to how many of each, how many did you say of each?
There's 40 of each head type. So when you do all the permutations for length, thread count, and the diameter, there's 40 for hex, 40 for button, and 40 for cap.
Okay, and we'll need a countersunk as well. I want a flathead, Allen-headed. bolts, but we have 40 for each one. Okay, that's good to know. Let me just take a look at this and figure out. Oh, you can also start to. You can start to from the other side. Okay. You can start to grab the nuts and washers and start to transfer them into this thing while I'm taking a look at it.
Awesome.
Okay. Yes.
Right here.
And the hex is all 4 of these.
Yep. That's all hex.
Excellent. And that's 40. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Half by 13.
Buttons.
Countersunk, we're just doing 3/8 and a quarter.
That's correct.
I'll do this for next. This is 1/2, 3/4.
The one problem I had with my plan was that it lacked symmetry. And then I realized I could obtain symmetry by putting all the nuts and washers on the bottom 2 shelves and then doing everything up from there. And so that is what I will do. So, great. So I think 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm thinking quarter 20, quarter 20, quarter 20. I'm thinking going 1/2 inch to 6 inch down there. What do you think? That gives me hex. That gives me quarter 20s, 5/16, 3/8, 1/2 inch, and then countersunk is these top 6.
That makes sense.
That's what I feel like.
Because when you're looking for a piece of hardware, you know you're going by the dimensions of it first, and then deciding on the head type at secondary.
And I think so. And with the symmetry, this allows me to do the 10 of each all the way down. Whereas if I'm doing 10 and I've got 12 across, I'm constantly stepping and shifting the start point for each head type.
Yes.
And that is, to me, anathema.
Yeah, that was driving me crazy looking at this one, because you have to go to the next line
Yes.
to find.
Okay, good, good. I'm glad we're on the same
Agreed.
page. Fabulous. Are you as satisfied as I am? I know there are some pockets of holes in here, some bins that are totally empty we didn't fill, but the fact is, I just want to remind you what it was like to pull out the nut and bolt sorter at the beginning of this build. Now that sorter is empty. Both sides. This is its new home. Oh my God, I can't even wait. Wait right there. Wait, one fell out. Where did it fall out from? That's it. The 5/16, 18 by 3 inch bolt. Woohoo! Thus concludes today's one-day build. Happy sorting!